Hey everyone, welcome back to another series of Mini-Series Monday where I take 10 comic books ranging from 3 to 12 issues and ranking them against one another. Today's issue is 1985's Fist of Khonshu Moon Knight. I'm going to do my best to get through this quickly because there's a lot of creative team on this. We got Alan Zelenitz, Chris Warner, E.R. Cruz, Christy Scheel, Joe Rosen, Larry Hama, Chris Warner, Danny Bulanati, Rick Parker, Mary Jo Duffy, Alan Cooperberg, to my surprise, the legendary Christopher Priest, Mark Beecham, Jeff Isherwood, and George Roussos on the creative team. So, unfortunately for this miniseries Monday, the first series we got here is more of an anthology series more than an actual full story that we typically get with miniseries. Actually, now that I think about it, that typically happens with the Marvel books, as for example, the Rocket Raccoon and Groot one that we saw previously in Series 1 of this. From what I can tell, this is more of a new series so that people who don't know Moon Knight can learn about him more. We get the origin of Moon Knight, and it seems like he is more connected to the Egyptian mythology. He is more connected to the moon itself, where this is where we learn about the changing of strength when it comes to depending on how the moon phase is. And I think, at least from what series that I have read before, we have all brand new villains throughout all 6 issues of this story. However, there is a subplot going throughout the comic series with Marlene. During this, Marlene is starting to get fed up with the idea of Moon Knight and wants Mark to settle down more. But, of course, that's not going to happen because Khonshu has these 3 priests who psychically talk to Mark Spector. So she kind of just has enough of it, and this is her saying, like, hey, this is my goodbye. If you get on that plane, I'm done seeing you. And here you go. This is the new artillery that Moon Knight gets within these comics, which is pretty cool. And I really like the first issue because we get a new villain called Jackal, who is, of course, basically the Moon Knight's version for Anubis, which is a very cool idea. But unfortunately, they kill him off during this first issue. It is really unfortunate because I think we do have a few villains in this that would be really cool as recurring or villains that we get to see in the future, but because of the killing, we're not going to see Jackal or Anubis the Jackal. I also want to comment on the art itself because, of course, for those of you who haven't seen much of me doing this, I like to categorize rankings by characters, story, and arc. Story, unfortunately, is going to be a little low because it's an anthology series and there's it's more lows than highs in this, unfortunately. As much as I like Moon Knight, So, artwork is probably my least out of the 3 categories, is probably the lowest because there are so many times where it feels like a kid is drawing in these areas. Like, for example, the guy's mustache and hair. Most blues, I've noticed. I'm going to get a better photo than this, but there's a lot of blues that typically don't do well with when it comes to the coloring. Like, for example, this guy's beard hair, so I have the first issue comic book wise, and when I was seeing this blue drawn in, I honestly thought somebody had this comic before me and scribbled in some areas because I couldn't find it at first, but there's also a gun that's colored the same color, and it's so not even close to being in the lines. So unfortunately, art I was just not having it. The 80s realistic look is just not for me as well. I really like more stylized art. However, I did like how Moon Knight looked within this comic. I did like the extra gold for him. It doesn't happen a lot. He's usually full white, you know. But it did work for what they were going for, with the idea that he was being more connected to his ancient Egypt mythology. This is probably some of the best artwork that we get throughout the Moon Knight comic. This like spatial vibe when he's being talked to by the priests of Khonshu. I do really like that look, and they do serve their purpose for this anthology of, hey, Moon Knight, you got to go do this now. It is also unfortunate that in one of these issues, issue 5, is actually one of my favorite issues, but they don't name the villain at all. I do like this, the assassins and what happens in the end. I won't spoil too much of that if you want to read this yourself. But I do like the cautionary tale and the different thematics that were happening at the end of 5 and 6, actually. Although I did not like what happened fully at the end of 6. Especially since this is the first series that I read for this. There's not much else to say other than I liked different beats, but there were some lows and just did not really care for. I did like the villains of, like I said, Anubis the Jackal, Mother White, and Bluebeard, but there's not much substance here other than that. So we'll see how this ranks. I feel like it's going to be low compared to the other series that we get to, but I am very excited to see where it lands. Like I've said before in the past, I love Moon Knight. His older comics do seem to be a little harder to get into, but I still like the character for what it's worth. Well, my phone just overheated and crashed, so I'm not able to show the comic that is next. But next time I am here, we will be discussing 1994's Angela, a 4-part miniseries, 3 parts, and a special that we will be reading. And that's all I really have after that. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, y'all. Go read some comic books.